Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Welcome to our broadcast tonight. So we have Kate Horrell with us, and then Melissa Skur here from Ensure the Heroes, Kate Horrell from katehorrell.com. We're so excited to be joining you. We just worked out all our tech issues.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we think. So yeah, do let us know if you can't hear us or whatnot. We're just getting used to all of this interview stuff, but we know that everybody is excited to participate in this conversation about the Survivor Benefit Plan, also known as the SBP, and life insurance, and how those two things can work together or completely separate, and what should you do for your own personal situation. So don't be shy. We know a lot of people have opinions on this matter. So a lot of us are knowledgeable in different aspects of it, and we can just do what we can do to answer people's questions if they have those questions. So where do you want to start, Kate?
That's an excellent question.
Cover with this.
My mother-in-law, when I was visiting and we were talking about this today, she said, "What are you doing? I don't understand." I said, "Oh, we're talking about our survivor plan." She's like, "Oh, our pension has a survivor plan."
Okay.
And they're not military, but the same concept. So we had a little chat about how it might be the same or how it might be different. It was really interesting to me because it really is very similar to a civilian plan. I know a lot of times people in the military tend to look at the benefits we have, and some of them are super unique, but sometimes they're just a little different twist on the same thing that maybe our civilian friends or peers might have, or in the case of a pension benefit, our parents may have had.
Right. Yeah.
So it's interesting to me. There's so many questions and there's so much bad information out there that people don't know the right answers to.
Right.
So I know you and I have talked about this a lot. Is there, because people, you are the life insurance expert, and I'm a little bit of a SBP benefit.
And that's cool. You know what I mean?
Expert.
And it's so nice to be able to say that, you know what I mean? Because it depends. It really depends on your situation. And I think a lot of it, you really hit the nail on the head in your blog post. It's going to depend on everybody's personal risk threshold and their piece, sleep at night factor, if you want to call it that. And I tried to be really objective and interview my clients for their life insurance needs, and try to get a gauge for what they actually need and what they actually are willing to pay for, because you have to bridge that gap. If nobody cares about paying for something, they're not going to, know. And so there's just a variety of plans, and the SVP seems to be the same concept. You need to know, and I do like how you are charging people who are going to be faced with this decision to learn as much as you can about it. You don't have to go super crazy, but if you're going to make the decision, it's a big commitment to take it or to not. So, you really do have to be married to that decision.
One of the things that I really noticed, because SBP is basically irrevocable, is that the people who have taken the time and really done a lot of education and made a decision, because again, like you said, there's no right decision, but the people who feel like they made a thoughtful decision are more likely 5 years down the road to be happier with their decision.
Right.
But you know what I'm wondering, because we are so versed in this, if we shouldn't back up and just talk about what is the survivor benefit plan and why do we care about it? What do you think?
Yeah, we got all rolled up in our tech issues. So
exactly. For those of you who are just joining us and who don't know anything about this SBP, Military Survivor Benefit Plan, the Survivor Benefit Plan is an income continuation plan for after the military retiree dies. So the key factor here is that military retirement pay dies with the military retiree. So if your grandfather or father or uncle or spouse is in the military and they have a pension and they pass away, that pension is gone. It just is. The Survivor Benefit Plan is a way to purchase replacement coverage for that. And it's a very specific plan. There's not a lot of variables in it, which is a good and a bad thing for some people. You can cover up to, the benefit is 55% of however much you cover. You can cover from $300 to all of the retiree's paycheck, and the resulting benefit is 55% of that amount. And it does have a cost for the amount that you cover at 6.5% of that amount every month. And like I said, yeah, there are very limited situations in which you can get out of it once you choose to get in. On the flip side, there's basically no way to get in if you don't choose it in the first place.
I think that's what makes it so overwhelming.
It is overwhelming because it's a long-term decision. And I firmly believe that for 98% of the people who retire, this is the biggest financial decision they're going to make in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Potentially, this is more than your house. This is more than your car. This is more than your kids' college education. We're talking about a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's very stressful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the reason that Melissa and I brought this together was because the big question that I hear people ask me all the time is, well, why don't I just not get SBP and I'm going to get life insurance? Like, okay, they're very, very different products. And while you may be able to put together a life insurance plan that will give you the same outcome as SBP, they're not comparable. It's like saying I want to go make a peach cobbler and you don't have any peaches and you make pears.
Right.
You might get a nice dessert at the end and it might taste good, but it's not the same thing that you started out with.
Right.
So and in my opinion, most people might want to consider a combination of the two. They may want to consider getting some life insurance that meets goals X, Y, and Z, and then they may want to consider survivor benefit plan to take care of their lifetime income needs.
That's great. And I will be honest, I am not 100% familiar with the SPP, and I think that's okay. Being where I am in my background and really my age and interest in entrance into the military, world, it is still new. My husband's about to be 8 years in, and that's not very long. So it's like that decision is far out for us personally, and a lot of the people that I know on the enlisted side. So it's something that I think it needs to be a piece that younger families should even start learning about. They don't really need to, but it would benefit them, because if they are going to be financially savvy and hope to really utilize their military career, then they can plan for that kind of thing accordingly. So what I have seen, even just on the life insurance side, being a life insurance agent, I've worked with people as young as 18 and 20 who just need some term insurance, and that's all they care about. They can afford it. And I've worked with people who are 60, 70, 80 and on their deathbed and dying, and they still have a mortgage. You know what I mean? So there is the perfect plan. There's what you hoped would happen, and maybe you tried, and maybe you just got off course, or maybe something happened financially that your plan to be self-insured and to live off of your assets just didn't work. So I think this is where this becomes really individual. It becomes a decision where spouses need to look at their family dynamic. And one of the interesting thing is, when I look at the SVP, it can also be for former spouses, for your children, for your, grandchildren and stuff. And so one thing I've learned coming into the military, not myself, but my husband, no military family is the same. Like, I'm just blown away by the diversity. Everybody's a different family backgrounds, everybody's different ages, different preferences, different situations. And it really does become an individual consideration. So we can say, yes, you need to do the SVP, and you should learn, or maybe you have the goal of being completely self-insured. You don't need anything, right? That's our woo! And especially everybody here in the military money sector. You know what I mean? Military money bloggers, we're going to go down there. That is what everybody should do. They should be able to do that, and everybody in their own personal situation is going to know where they are in that course. So if you're approaching the decision and your course of action is not going to get you self-insured, then what do you really need to do?
Well, I think that's one of the big keys for both life insurance and for survivor benefit plan. Nobody's buying life insurance and no one's enrolling in the survivor benefit plan for a best case scenario.
Right.
You don't buy life insurance because you think your life is going to go the way you planned. You
Right.
buy life insurance in case it doesn't go the way you planned. And one of the really good quotes, and I have a person I'd like to attribute it to, but I'm not entirely sure that this was original to her, but is that life insurance is a great tool for when the person you're insuring doesn't live as long as you think that they're going to. So say you have a service member who's going to retire, and then they intend on having a second career, and that second career is going to allow them to become financially independent, and they won't need survivor benefit plan, because that second career is going to bring them to the point that they don't need those benefits anymore. Life insurance protects you for if that service member becomes ill the first year after they get out and they don't have the opportunity to pursue that whole second career and accomplish those goals that they intended. On the flip side, well, life insurance is if the person who's insured maybe doesn't live as long as they had hoped to. Survivor benefit plan really benefits the survivors when they live a lot longer than they think that they might.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because the two key factors with survivor benefit plan that really distinguish it from any other product out there is that it is guaranteed lifetime income and it's inflation adjusted. Which is huge. And I will give you an example. Just in my own family, I have someone who has a military pension. It's not survivor benefit plan, but they run parallel to each other. When they retired in like 1967, their pension check was several $100s a month. And today in 2018, their military pension is several $1,000s a month.
Right.
So the same correlation goes with that SBP. And they did elect SBP for their spouse, but had they passed away in 1968, that same survivor benefit plan that would have been a few $100s a month would be a few $1,000s a month now.
Right.
So if you have a survivor that lives much longer than is expected, the benefit of that inflation adjustment and the guaranteed lifetime income is really where the biggest key to survivor benefit plan comes from.
Absolutely. And my background in insurance is fairly simple. I'm one of those life insurance people that has decided to not venture into annuities and not venture into cash value life insurance. Like, they all have their place, and they're all good and bad, depending on your opinion and depending on your situation, And so my personal practice is basically term insurance, but I understand, I do understand the basics of an annuity, the basics of the cash value life insurance. And there are several cash value life insurance plans that can accomplish a similar outcome, or get you lifetime coverage. But it's a dangerous road to go down. I think when you're talking about military families that have this SPP as an option, and it really is the most competitive annuity out there, I think that families are struggling with, what do I do? Because I'm not good with just a term. We don't necessarily know if we need or want to pay this SPP. And, I can do a term, but the term's only going to be 10, 15, 20, sometimes 30 years. The older you get, you cannot get a 30-year term. And so I think that's where it really comes into play, getting into your financial situation. If you're not there already, if you don't already know the ins and outs of your financial situation, you got to get in it to be able to really see. I mean, there's no point in going on and like digging online and asking experts here and there, like, if you don't know what your goals are. Like, it just keeps going back to that goal. Like, are you even going to need to have income replacement at 70? Like, that to me is so difficult to think about. But it really depends on where you are financially for your assets. And then you always have the risk factor of stock market crashes, real estate crashes. I mean, there's just cycles in the way how all of this happens, and it just becomes a very difficult situation to plan for. And I think that budget is huge. If you're not going to want to stick to that payment, whether it's a life insurance plan, a car payment, a house payment, anything that you're on the hook for, I mean, that's got to be a big decision. Is your military retirement going to be able to cover, your lifestyle for your entire family? After you retire, a lot of spouses haven't worked, and they don't really want to go to work at that point. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's really a huge decision on, what is your family dynamic looking like?
So that's an interesting thing, because if you had asked me, I don't know, 5, 8, 10 years ago about SVP, my response would be, everybody should take it. Everybody take it. Take the SVP. Don't tell me why you shouldn't.
Right.
And then I met a mutual friend of ours, who I will not name, but probably everybody who's watching this knows, who does not have SVP and does not need SVP. They're a dual military couple. They both have their own military pensions. I did not shut my door, so you can probably hear my dryer buzzing.
Oh, no, I can hear that.
And they have some real estate, and they've got fairly substantial assets outside of their military pensions. And that really opened my eyes to the fact that, wow, this is not a black and white situation. Not everybody does need the benefit of that lifetime income. But for so many people, like you said, if a lot of your family's overall financial situation is tied up in that military retirement pay, and you're heavily dependent on it, if you choose not to get the SVP, then what is your plan? And maybe it's life insurance. And then people who come to me and say, well, we're going to get life insurance instead of SVP, that's fine. I'm not going to tell you not to do that, but I'm going to ask you to think about some of the ways that may go wrong using life insurance as an income replacement tool. Now, you and I have talked about life insurance for my family, and I think there's a lot of places that life insurance is a super useful tool. And what are like the main things that you think of when people are buying life insurance?
Yeah. So I usually try to get people to, people like to just give me a quote. Well, wait a second. That's why I do a lot lower volume, because it's we have to talk about a lot. Really. There's what are you trying to cover, for how long, what is your budget, what are you even eligible for? Because those three things have to be in sync. Really, you have to find that combination of a plan that's going to be able to be harmonious between all of those, because he's not going to be able to maintain the payment. They're not going to be able to get approved. And okay, wow, now they like really wanted this. I see this a lot. I really want to have 500,000 and blah blah blah. Okay, well, you can get approved for that, but because of this situation in your personal profile, your hobbies, your health, whatever, your smoking habit, it's going to cost you this much, and people at that point tend to go, well, then never mind. And it's like, all right, you know what I mean? And I think that's really where you need, people need to define their goals with it. What did you even know what that 500,000 was ultimately going to protect in the first place? You just you want it. So,
right.
There's that. And, really being able to get your budget in place is, I'm sure you see this as a financial counselor. It's like budget is really everything. And it's hard because, military spouses, our budget changes all the time. Military families.
All the time.
Got really good at that.
One thing that is super key is, what is the purpose of the coverage that you're trying to get? If you're looking at any product out there, even if it's not life insurance, if you're looking at life insurance, you're looking at SVP. If you think you want to invest in Bitcoin, what is your goal that you're trying to accomplish? And the thing that I find is that if your goal is to create income, SVP is a really good product for that. It's very competitively priced. I know people complain about its price, but I was talking to someone today, and she said that her spouse's, this is a civilian plan, her spouse, when they retired from their civilian pension plan, their option was 100%, so full military retirement pay, or 75% with survivor benefits. So that means they were basically paying a 25% premium every month for survivor benefits. When you compare that to survivor benefit plan that's 6.5%, gosh, that looks really super cheap. because it is subsidized by the government.
Right.
I know it seems like a lot, but again, like you said, back to what your goals are. If your goal is to pay for your kids to go to college, or if your goal is to pay off your mortgage, or if your goal is to get your spouse through the next 5 years that there's going to be kids at home and then they want to return to the workforce.
Right.
Well, then maybe life insurance is maybe life insurance is the right tool to fulfill that goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think as I come to understand the survivor benefit plan more and look at it against, and if you want to use that word, against or in comparison to other life insurance products, you know it can't be compared. So then you look at, well, what are the combinations? You know, and you have where somebody can take the SPP at a lower amount. They're not necessarily comfortable with taking the full amount and paying that, you know, obligated premium. And so maybe they take a lower amount at whatever level, you know, options are available to them. And then based on their goals, compare that, or, you know, buy it alongside a term plan that's going to cover some shorter term goals, or a lifetime plan. And when I say lifetime, I'm not really a fan of the cash value ones. There are other ones that you can do that are essentially like lifetime terms, if you can use that as the layman's term for saying it, not the actual name of the product. So you have to be careful with some things to throw out there. But, you know, people don't know that there are other plans that are going to extend beyond your 30 years and are not going to have the same premium and commitment and cash value growth. They're like hybrid plans. And so, you know, in some situations, those could work alongside an SVP in full or an SVP, you know, halfway. So, you know, the goal is always to reduce your liabilities and to always, you know, get yourself self-insured and do that. But we all know that it doesn't always happen at age 40 and up. You know, from age 40 and 70, that does not always happen for people. And
you bring up an excellent point.
Mm-hmm.
Am I getting some reverb all of a sudden? Do you hear that?
I don't. No. I'm like, I'm doing this.
Maybe I'm imagining it.
No, I don't hear it.
But you bring up an excellent point, is that you don't have to cover the entire amount of SBP. So you don't need to say the military member has military retirement pay of $2,500 a month, and you've looked at your budget, and worst case scenario, with keeping in mind any other benefits you have, perhaps the survivor works, perhaps you own rental property. They don't need a full 55% of $2,500 a month, which is $1,250 plus $1,250, $1,375 a month. Maybe they really only need to bare minimum, worst case scenario, they need $800 a month. So you can purchase a reduced amount of SBP to be that tool in your toolbox to cover those bare minimum amounts. And then that's your worst case scenario. If you're really concerned about the cost of SBP, you can provide that guarantee of that stable lifetime inflation adjusted income without committing to the full amount. And particularly maybe for people who have served for a really long time, you know, people who have served for 30 or 40 years, bring home some fairly substantial retirement checks. And in their cases, they may be really reluctant to shell out 6.5% of a retirement check that's numerous $1,000s. They don't need that much coverage. That's not something they actually have a need for as part of their bigger picture.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I think what I'm going to present now is really something that comes into play even just with a general life insurance, you know, consultation is when you lose your spouse, you lose your, you know, the person in your family, what are your plans? Do you even know? Actually, Daniel and I are going to talk about that tomorrow. So, you know, it's tough. Joe and I have had conversations, maybe not like at the deep level, but we've been married 5 years this coming the 13th or 12th, I forget. You know what I mean? Like we hit the high points, but he still needs to redo his will. His parents are still on there, you know what I mean? And so like I'm like, Joe, you know, he was TDY when I was doing mine. And so like the more established you are in your relationship, that becomes an easier conversation sometimes. Sometimes people don't want to talk about that, but it's helpful because I look at a lot of military families, and I say, well, what would they do? What would the service member do? God forbid their spouse died, and vice versa. What would, this spouse do? Are they going to go back home? Where is home anymore? Even
Right.
for a service member. We are so messed up emotionally, and with how we are attached to all these different places all over the world, and our goals change. My husband originally, when I met him, would be like staying in Lowell, Michigan, just like this small town outside of Grand Rapids. I don't know that that's not necessarily important to him anymore, like it was when he started. So there's so many things like you look at. And then when you tie that into your needs, your goals, and your wants with your actual need for income, if your family has a house that you're going to go to because that's where you want to be, and or that you're going to be inherited, something like that, that's like an example. That takes away a huge need for a paycheck in general. You know what I mean? You're always going to need some form of income, but when you have that situation, and I know that there's a lot of military spouses and families, that do. We're talking about the spouse that's worried about, is their, retired service member pension going to go away? Well, how much do they really need it, especially in that situation? When they've lost them? Are they going home? Do they want to travel? Do they want to start a business? Do they, what are they doing? What is new life for them?
Yeah, there's so many variables, and particularly as I think sort of the structure of the military spouse has changed. I've been around kind of a really long time. And as I think some of you have probably read in some of my posts, my husband's first duty station, we had 2 spouses that worked. Mm-hmm. And that was like, ooh, they have a job.
Yeah.
Becoming a much more common thing, which changes the dynamic of the situation. But we all absolutely, I don't think anyone disagrees that in most cases, the challenges of moving or being the on-call parent certainly affect your career and the way that you choose to pursue it or not pursue it. Absolutely. And what your flexibility necessarily is.
I mean, you can't just start over, really. I mean, how do you get started in a career? It's not impossible, but what income level are you going to make?
Right. So you know what? We've been on here for 28 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't want to make people crazy.
No.
So if you had like 2 things to say about life insurance and SBP, say them really fast.
Oh my God, you're gonna make me do 2.
Do you want me to go first?
Yes.
Okay. The two things I want to say about SBP are: if you have disabled children, read up, learn about it, because SBP can be assigned to you can make disabled children beneficiary of SBP, and that is basically a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is, if you have children, look into children SBP. Once again, that's almost a no-brainer. If your kids are young enough to qualify for it, if you include it with spousal coverage, it's literally like pennies a month. If you do child SBP alone, it's still, like, I don't know, $4 a month or something. And it will act as a great buffer to get those kids from whatever age they are now to no longer being eligible for SBP coverage. So my 2 things about SBP are, even if you really violently think it's a horrible idea for your situation and you absolutely don't want it, if you have children, go back and look again.
Into it. Right. Exactly. And I'm going to piggyback off of, I really like your suggestion. If you don't know by the time you get to that decision and you're not sure what your situation or your decision is, by the time you actually have to sign off, then give yourself that year. There's nothing wrong with that. And I know military life is so always crazy when we're going through all these transitions, and military retirement is a big step. And so you might have done your best to prepare for it mentally, emotionally, and financially. But if you're not sure, take that year and then commit to
2 years. 2 years.
Sorry. Take the 2 years then and say, what's your checklist? Who do you need to talk to? What do you need to find out? you know, the life insurance aspect is huge. Lots of people are completely oblivious to what they can actually get approved for. So, you know, that's a big deal. And if you know, who are your people that you need to talk to if you're looking at something other than term? If term life insurance is not really something that you know, can see yourself supplementing and or replacing the SPP with, then you need to take a whole nother level, because there's lots of other products out there, but who's going to be your best resource to help you really understand and, you know, evaluate those policies, because they're very hard to understand. You know, they can be more expensive than your SPP option, depending on your situation and what you're trying to, you know, replace in terms of the length, in terms of, you know, your approval, and then the amount of coverage. So make yourself that list of who are your people. And I'm not one of them. I'm not one of them, just so you know. I'm not the one to talk about cash value life insurance, you know, and I'm at peace with that at this point in my career.
Not everybody can be an expert in everything.
No,
and
there's so
you
many.
don't want to talk to somebody who thinks that they are an expert in everything.
Right.
There's so many things that people ask me questions, and my response is, I know somebody that knows the answer to that, and I will hook you up with them.
Exactly. You know, we know a lot of those people where to go, and we have a lot of military resources, third party, and all of that. So that would be what I would suggest.
So what I'm going to say, I don't know, do you want to wrap up? I was going to say, if people find this helpful, we could do it again sometimes. We didn't get a lot of questions, and that's okay, because we had this last minute change of venue. And so I think that there's probably some people who didn't actually get accepted into the military money group until we were halfway through. And this can
part
be of the joy of Facebook.
Or download. So we'll find a way to get this out there. Your page, we'll do all the tech stuff, you know, behind the scenes. But if you guys can share it, do it. I don't know if it'll let you do that on the admin, but post your questions. If you're getting to this late, do post your questions, because, you know, there's a lot of stuff Kate and I have. We have a list of stuff we can probably do.
We could just talk all night, but you guys don't want that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks, guys. We appreciate it.
Have a great night.
Bye.